we're back for part 2 of our series today. I have Miles working with me now instead of Rob. Had to switch him out a little bit. What we're going to do now is go over a basic fire hydrant, or it's also called a hip circle. Okay. Again, I'm going to have Miles perform a couple of reps. We're going to look at what he's doing, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay. So go ahead, Miles. Alright, so what we saw there from Miles is improper technique. So we couldn't really make any observations that we can really get a good lead on because his technique was improper to begin with. So now we have to cue him into good technique. What we saw was his elbows were bent, his hips were open. Alright, so now I'm going to cue him into a better technique. Miles, straighten out both elbows for me, please. Keep your hips squared up to the ground. Now, make that circle as big as you can with your leg. Alright, so, Miles did a couple reps. Elbows were straight that time. Hips were squared to the ground. Circles were not quite as big as we wanted them. He wasn't getting that full range of motion through his hip. Alright, now we have to figure out why is that. Best way I've seen so far that we can do this is I'm going to grab Miles and manually try to take him through this range of motion. So let's see what happens when I do that. Alright, so what we saw there was when I manually took Miles through the range of motion, his elbows were bending, his groin, I could feel the resistance there in his groin. So his adductors, all that musculature through here, through his hips, is probably tight. Now we know perhaps that's an area we need to address for him. And again, we can look at that through some of his other warm-ups that he's doing and start to put the pieces together and really decide, okay, this is where this guy needs work. Let's write a prescription for that and let's fix it during his normal programming. The other thing that we can look for when we manually take him through it is this. So that time, I grabbed him, took him through the range of motion manually, elbows stayed straight, didn't jerk him, didn't torque him, didn't feel any resistance. So what I can conclude there is, if I can manually take him through a perfect, nice, big range of motion, but when I ask him to do it on his own, and I've cued him, he understands what he's trying to do, but he can't accomplish that, chances are it's weak glute med, okay? What we know about weak glute meds for athletes is that that's definitely not a good thing. That's something we want to address right away. A lot of the research that we've seen lately on that stuff is that when the glute meds are weak and you're seeing that knee valgus, that knee collapse, okay, whether it's landing from a jump, squatting, okay, or cutting, then you're much more prone to these ACL tears that we're seeing at super high numbers nowadays. So glute med, if we see that red flag during our athletes' warm-up, something like a fire hydrant or hip circle, right away we know we need to address that, take care of. Once again, Coach Schmitter here with Miles, showing you the fire hydrant or hip circle, a couple different things to look for when you're performing that in your warm-up. Then you know, okay, we found these things, let's make a prescription, let's add a couple things to a warm-up, to the end of a workout. Usually it doesn't have to be a crazy long fix, all right? But you're working towards that individualization of the athlete. Always want to make sure that we're taking each athlete, figuring out what they need, and then prescribing them what it is that they need to get better.